Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Today I present to you the oWell. Eventually, and oxygen not included, you'll want a renewable source of oil, and frankly, that means an oil well. Here at Tuxie Industries, we store your oil in a tightly sealed and thermally isolated box with fuel extraction services present. Added automation controls the illumination and ensures your duplicate completes the depressurization. No expensive materials here. You only need a little gold amalgam and or steel. Get your oil out of a Tuxie Industries oWell today. oWell? Seriously, guys? Why do you want this? Well, crude has a lot of applications and oxygen not included, and you can use it for high temperature liquid locks. As you can see here, this is a really compact one. Here's a more conventional one combined with petroleum on top of it. So you only use a little bit. I've used 200 here and 200 per tile for the petroleum. You could get by with less even. And yeah, crude is ultimately very useful. Crude can also be used to, this is a gold amalgam aqua tuner, and if you got crude, this makes this very easy to set up, and you can have a very cheap aqua tuner to cool stuff. This can work about half the time, and this doesn't overheat or take damage. Crude can obviously be turned into petroleum using an oil refinery or a petroleum boiler. The petroleum boiler from Tuxie Industries is still under development, so stay tuned. Also, oil is useful for making plastic. The only other source is these glossy Drecos that I'm got here to show you, and this polymer press, which needs petroleum, of course, to be fed into it. And then, of course, crude oil is also really useful for power. If you turn it into petroleum, you can burn it in a petroleum generator, or it can be boiled in a sour grass boiler to be turned into natural gas and turned into even more power. It gets really crazy at that point what you can do with crude oil. So I highly recommend that you get your hands on some Inoni today. Well, number one, make them out of lead or whatever you have laying around, because they have a insanely high overheat temperature of 2,000 degrees. So whatever you make it out of, it's going to melt long before it overheats. So just so you know. They need 1 kilogram per second of hot water. Generally, you'd like to use a hot steam vent or another hot water source to feed this with. And right here, I have, just starting with the first design here, this is just a submerged design. And you always want to do this with an oil well, is you always want to have the oil well submerged in at least 2 tiles of liquid. It doesn't care any liquid pressure, any gas pressure, this will work. But when a duplicant comes and vents this, you want it to be submerged, because that's when steam or water will appear inside of your crude oil source. And we don't want that. We just want natural gas and we want oil. And as long as you're not adding heat to the crude oil somehow, you will never get steam or water in the system here. So everything here uses the submerged design. Now this puppy produces 3.33 kilograms per second of crude oil, always at 90 degrees. So this is why you always want to feed in water that's at least 90 degrees, or you're losing a lot of the chill from that water. So there's lots of hot water sources in the game. This is one of the great places to actually dump that hot water, because no matter what, it's going to be 90 degrees anyway. And then when a duplicate shows up to vent this, unfortunately, this is not near pressure for that, but you'll see soon enough Abe will come and take care of that. And what happens is, at that time, it will vent 1.3 kilograms per second of natural gas at 300 degrees Celsius. And that's why you need this to be submerged. Otherwise, the water that's contained inside the oil well will get heated up by the oil well, will be heated up by the natural gas that's being released, and it'll pop the pipe, or it will just create steam in there, which is just inconvenient, but really doesn't matter. Now we'll get into, this is just a basic design where like it's just dribbling off the sides, like if you're venting in this case into space. But if this was down in your oil biome and you had it running like this might be, you know, just venting straight into your oil biome. Hopefully you got that sealed up, but natural gas stays low in bases anyway. And then all of your oil runs off the side, and you're probably going to want to pump down there anyway to get that out. So let's introduce this with a few more pumps. This one's just the first one. I've got a liquid pump there, no sensor for it. This is an overflow sensor. Number one, this is just overflowing, and normally we don't want that. So we put in an overflow sensor, and it's quite simple. We have a hydro sensor. Everything here is made out of lead because usually that's what's laying around right next to the oil well when you build it. That's why I make the oil well out of lead. Everything made out of metal is made out of lead because it's not going to melt in this application. And so you can see all this does is when this hits 250 kilos of pressure, and that it'll only hit that is if the pipe backs up and the liquid pump can't pump it out, right? So the crude oil can come up to this level. That's why this tile has to be there. And this one will just pump pump all day as long as there's demand in the pipe. And this will carry on. And in case the pipe backs up to 250, this will stop. Now, this will just infinitely stack the natural gas. You can see down there at the bottom that this is up at insanely high pressures already. It doesn't care. You can go up into hundreds of thousands easily, and it just doesn't care. And you can retrofit in a gas pump later if you want the natural gas. Like over here, this is when we get into designs where I have both pumps in there. And again, there's just one piece of automation to control the oil well here. It's still just a simple overflow sensor, and we've got this liquid locked in. But this would still leak tons and tons of heat into your base, because like over here, this would be probably atmosphere. So there's actually no thermal isolation here to control this. So you can see Abe here is actually venting. This is what I'm talking about. And I have this actually set to 50 because he's working on about a dozen of these oil wells. So I want him to come and do them earlier. They default to 75%. And so what he did, you can see all of this natural gas just vents in here, and I've got these gas pumps. All they do is suck out the natural gas until it's a vacuum in there. And in this case, actually, it would cause these blobs to, this would actually thermally isolate it a little bit. But this is still not a very ideal application, but demonstrating how simple you can get. You only need one sensor. But ideally, you would like to have, you know, a sensor for each of these pumps and control everything, as well as, you know, there's a problem with the oil well at certain times with the duplicate coming and showing up and getting stalled. We didn't get Abe to show you here, but we also can add automation for that. But here is the finalized, fully loaded version of the oWell. And here, this is completely thermally isolated because we've got a vacuum in here. We have this atmos sensor. This makes this a lot more energy efficient because now the gas pump just runs a little bit, 6% average per 5 cycles, whereas up there it'd be probably 25-30%, and it just wastes power sucking back. And you always want to set this to 250 grams above. And then over here we have the this is the automation to control the liquid pump, and if it's above 100, it's going to pump. It will pump all day as long as it's 100, and this right here is as long as it's 250 kilos or less right here, then the oil well will continue to create oil. So this will not overflow into the other liquid block here, which would be bad because this is water and we don't really want to heat that up to close to boiling. We also have a light and a duplicate sensor up here, and what this means is when Abe shows up, the duplicate sensor will turn green. That will turn on the light, and here's a buffer gate. The buffer gate is just a diode basically. The way this works is I've got it set to the default 5, but you normally want to set it to 0.1. But 5 is just fine. It just means light. Not the oil well would just stay on for 5 seconds longer, and it's not going to overflow. It wouldn't make a difference. This buffer is actually just to stop the green signal from the hydro sensor to backflow into and keep the light on forever. That's all the buffer gate's for. And what this does, this duplicate sensor does, is it prevents a condition where, let's say this is close to 250, and it stops the oil well from going, and then Abe or whatever dupe is trying to vent will be stopped in their errand mid-action and interrupted, and it'll just be slower and less efficient and look stupid. And this duplicate sensor is just to prevent that, and the light just speeds up the action when they're there. So nice little addition, and this oil well will serve you perfectly, never leak any heat into the environment, never overflow, perfectly function and work forever. I hope you enjoyed your oWell from Tuxie Industries. So here's an application of an oWell in a practical real-world application that you could build in the game. I know this looks very complicated. Let me just explain. Obviously, up here we've got the oil well. I'll start with the steam vent tamer. This is an S vent. If you look top right, here's a link to this built, and this is our source of hot water. And no matter what, this steam vent is just going to continue to produce hot water, and we're going to feed this into our oil well, and this will work forever. If you want to build that, check out that video. For this thing, you can tell that it is dormant. It has a dormancy. Oh, that was the temp shift plate. Here it has, this pumps out 4.7 kilos per second at 110 C, and its dormancy is 145.3 minus 86.8, 50 some cycles. And so a oil well would need 600 kilos per cycle of water, because there's 600 seconds per cycle and it takes 1 kilo per second. That's if you was actually processing at 3.33 full capacity, you would need at least 7 tanks. In this application, it's actually only using 2 kilos per second, so we would actually be able to get away with just 5 tanks. So the water gets fed in here and fed into the oil well, and then the oil well, 2 kilos per second on average. You can see right here, not that one, this one, exactly 20% average, because 20% of 10 kilos per pipe, because this is 10 kilos per second going in, is your 2 kilos per second. That's how you can measure it in the e-boiler and the i-boiler. I never mentioned it in those videos. Sorry. I'll link the e-boiler up top right here, and yeah, up over here. And That'll tell you how to build this. I have a couple of sour gas boiler designs, but that'll show you how to build this one exactly. And this one just has a couple thermal regulators keeping this cool. The other, I have one with an aqua tuner here. That's the iBoiler. But anyway, this takes 2 kilos of crude per second, comes in, drops it down here. We heat it up to 555 degrees C. It turns it into sour gas, which we then freeze to negative 183 degrees. And then we pump it out, and it actually just gets dropped in here. This is a natural gas chamber, and the natural gas from the oil well gets fed up here. We actually don't have a gas pump in this whole well. And all this natural gas gets left in here and pumped into these natural gas generators. And what this does is this just runs all the time. And it produces something like 9.5 or more kilowatts of power for your base constantly. And it just runs forever. You also get a kilogram per second of polluted water out of this. You could run that through a water sieve and feed it right back into your oil well and take this out. But this is a great way to get rid of a hot water. And in this particular example, because I'm cooling everything down here to about 20 degrees, a little bit hotter in certain spots, but we get out nice chill polluted water. So you could use this to feed into any sort of plants that need polluted water. This would be a great source for that. But you could also just feed it back in. That's always an option. And this is a self-contained system. If you were using a sieve, you'd need a little bit of sand, but that's literally it. This is completely contained. I guess I should also mention that this, on average, pumps out. This is actually breaking up the pipe. This is part of a temperature transfer system in the iBoiler, and I just routed the piping through it, and this is how it came out. But you can see that 675 kilos or 675 grams per second of carbon dioxide, and we take half of that, which is 337.5 grams per second of carbon dioxide. This is enough to feed 10 tame slicksters. These ones are actually wild, but you could have 10 ranched slicksters fully fed off of this, no problem, and recover even more crude from it. Or you can just vent it into space. I'm also doing that. and that completes the entire cycle. This whole thing will just work forever as long as well, actually, I'm not even sure, coming off the top of my head, the way this is set up, what could cause this to fail. It could just run forever and you'd have tons and tons of power. And this isn't even optimized, because I made the e-boiler and the iBoiler. I just set this to 2,000 kilos. Once it's at full capacity, you could go higher than that, I think, because this only runs at 72%. Yep. So you could ramp this up and put even more natural gas generators in here. You could use the, there are these, where's the NG tune-up? It's probably under stations now, isn't it? The power control station. You'd have to set these up as like branch-sized rooms of 96 tiles to make that work. And it would take a few of these, but you could get even more power out of this. It's crazy. For just a little bit of metal, that's all it takes. That's all the power station requires. You can get insane, massive amounts of power out of this, and you could ramp this up even more. This is just conservative, and it still gives you dang near 10 kilowatts of excess power to power whatever craziness you want to. So live your dreams, and oxygen not included, with our products from Tuxii Industries. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time. Thanks again for your patronage to Tuxii Industries, and please be sure to like and subscribe to stay up to date with our products. We welcome all feedback. If you are interested in more products from Tuxie Industries, or if you want to see our products demonstrated in survival mode, be sure to sound off in the comments below. We hope you get many faithful cycles of service from our products. Complaints and refund requests can be mailed to 50,000 Shattered Planet Way. Here are the schematics. The save is linked below. Thanks for watching, and I hope you were informed, entertained, or both. Catch you next time.